by and contributes to public dialogue and policy development. Empowering institutes like CDSI that bridge disciplines, lower barriers to access, and amplify research results for greater impact is fundamental to Canada's position at the cutting edge of AI. It is imperative that Canada's robust AI research community remains a trusted partner to maintain the country's position as a global leader in responsible and open artificial intelligence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we will now proceed to Mr. Labonte. Please go ahead. You will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is François Labonte. I'm here today on behalf of the Computer Research Institute, Montreal, CRIM. Let me start by presenting innovation and artificial intelligence. I'll start with a recent report by the Council of Canadian Academics of November 18, 2025, which notes the steady deterioration of Canada's innovation performance to the point where maintaining our quality of life is being questioned. Rapid and accelerated adoption of AI by our businesses is identified as a promising lead for addressing the situation. Innovation here means the conversion of scientific and technological advances into socioeconomic value. Innovation is not synonymous with novelty. Innovation represents the culmination of a rigorous and systematic industrialization process, which validates the performance, reliability, and viability of a potential new product or process in real-life context. This aspect of industrialization is poorly understood in Canada, and its crucial importance is underestimated. Industrialization is a profession in itself, requiring distinct approaches, skills, and resources. CRIM is a not-for-profit organization that has been making a significant contribution to Quebec's research and innovation ecosystem for 40 years. Since its creation, CRIM has distinguished itself because of its expertise in artificial intelligence. At CRIM's inception, academic and industrial players identified a need to create a neutral player to bridge their two worlds, one dedicated to industrialization. Industrialization is mainly based on experimental development activities. That is the performance of systematic work, drawing on knowledge acquired through research and practical experience, and producing additional knowledge aimed at producing new products or processes or improving existing ones. CRIM is a research and technology type organization, RTO, a category of player widespread in Europe and other industrialized countries, with a large proportion of its activities dedicated to industrialization through experimental development. A recent study by the European RTO Association, EARTO, shows that the world's most innovative countries devote a much higher portion of their public investment in research, development, and innovation, RDI, to experimental development. If Canadian companies are to adopt AI on a massive scale, their experimental development activities will have to be significantly enhanced. Our tax system, which is designed to support experimental development and is one of the most generous in the world, simply doesn't meet this objective due to its complexity, restrictive criteria, and unpredictability, among other factors. We need to better support and enhance the actions of players like CRIM, AI practitioners who are made available to companies to contribute to their AI projects and transfer the knowledge and practical experience accumulated over time to enable them to accelerate the adoption of AI. A hands-on player that reaches a vast number of companies, CRIM is well attuned to the diverse and evolving needs of businesses, particularly SMEs, including the following very concrete, I'll give you very concrete examples during question period. Industrialization activities are generally well mastered by large companies, but much more difficult to reach for a large proportion of Canadian companies, most of which are SMEs. The state must provide more than financial support at this phase. It must support a critical mass of players in this field. This must become a priority for all governments, including the Government of Canada, if we are to ensure the success of our businesses. In its report, the Council of Canadian Academies calls for action, suggesting radical changes to strategies implemented in the past. We propose putting forward measures that are down-to-earth, pragmatic, in line with proven business needs, and focused on wealth creation. Canada must put in place a coherent governmental action in line with what the best in the world are doing in innovation. RTO-type players such as CREAM are ideally suited to support companies in the adoption of AI. And to be fully effective, RTOs must also count on the support of their governments. In Canada, many forces are already at work, and we have all the tools we need to succeed. It's all about coordinating the actions of the various players and give them the means to carry out the missions entrusted to them. This is an essential pillar. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Labonte. Mr. LaRochelle, please go ahead. You will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Merci. Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to appear today as part of this very important study.
Director of MILA, the Quebec Artificial Intelligence Institute, headquartered in Montreal. MILA is the world's largest academic deep learning research center, a community of over 1,500 strong researchers, bringing together researchers and experts dedicated to the scientific excellence and responsible development of AI. Before I begin my remarks, I wanted to mention that I'm appearing virtually today as I'm in the beautiful Banff, Alberta, speaking at a CFAR workshop, part of the program that was set up by Dr. Jeffrey Hinton over 20 years ago, and that supported Canada's critical AI research early on. So it's fitting for me to make these remarks right near as we continue discuss how to continue to ensure our ecosystem thriving. I also want to offer a bit of context about my background and how aligns with MILA's broader perspective. At my core, I'm a professor and a researcher driven by the pursuit of new frontiers and discoveries in AI. At the same time, I maintain a deep interest in industry and the real-world adoption of AI technologies. Before joining MILA, my company WetLab was acquired by Twitter, and I later went on to lead Google DeepMind's Montreal lab. These experiences have given me a unique vantage point on the direct path from scientific breakthroughs to industry impact and on what it takes for Research Institute to continually strengthen this pipeline. So thank you for creating this opportunity to contribute. Je tiens d'abord à saluer le leadership du gouvernement fédéral.
Let me commend the federal government's leadership to date. MILA welcomes the government of Canada's continued investment in Budget 2025 to strengthen the country's leadership in AI with a strong focus on research excellence, talent development, and computing infrastructure, all of which are fundamental pillars of Canada's AI ecosystem. We particularly welcome the $1 billion investment in the Accelerated Research Chairs Initiative, which has the potential to attract transformative talent to Canada in a variety of fields. We also appreciate the government's recognition of the gaps in funding for startups, which remains a major issue for AI startups and innovation in general. These investments demonstrate that this government understands that AI is not an isolated sector, but a rapidly emerging foundation for our future prosperity and security. However, I'm here to discuss what's necessary to turn these investments into sustainable AI sovereignty. The global context has changed dramatically. We are no longer simply developing our capabilities. We are engaged in an extremely competitive global race.
Discoveries benefit Canada, we must act quickly on two main fronts. First, we must secure our talent immediately. Canada's early global lead in AI was built on the Canada CFAR AI Chairs program. It allowed us to repatriate top minds and retain rising stars, but that advantage is currently at risk. We are witnessing an unprecedented global war for talent. Tech giants offering recruitment packages valued in the hundreds of millions. Nations like US, France, and the UAE are aggressively deploying sovereign funds to poach our best minds. The current funding cycle for the specific AI Chairs program sunsets in 2026. In the academic world, recruitment and retention decisions are made 9 to 12 months in advance. That means our top researchers are deciding right now whether their future is in Montreal and Edmonton or San Francisco or Paris. While the government seems dedicated to renewing these chairs, time is of the essence. We therefore strongly urge the government to commit to the long-term renewal and expansion of the AI Chairs program as soon as possible. We need to send a signal to the world that Canada is a permanent home for top AI talent. Second, we need to evolve how we fund research for increased strategic impact. While the chairs program supports individual brilliance, we must introduce a complementary layer of funding, directed research funding for labs and teams separate from individual chairs. Currently, our funding models favor individual curiosity-driven research. This is vital, but it's not enough to solve massive complex problems. We need the agility to mobilize directed teams, groups of researchers focused on specific mission-oriented goals. Establishing this funding mechanism for directed teams would allow us to achieve two critical objectives simultaneously. First, creating conditions to work on root node breakthroughs. We need to mobilize teams through foundational challenges whose resolution generates cascading effects across entire domains. An example of that would be DeepMind's AlphaFold, which has led to unlocking a lot of opportunities for pharmaceutical discovery. And second, I think we need to align research with national priorities. Crucially, such mechanism would allow the government to direct research power towards Canadian challenges. Canada has laid the foundation. We built the ecosystem the rest of the world is still trying to copy, but the window to maintain and capitalize on that advantage is quickly closing. By renewing our commitment to talent, introducing directed funding for mission-oriented research teams, and fixing the early-stage commercialization gap, we can ensure that we do not just produce breakthrough research, but convert it into industry and societal benefit. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Thanks to all the witnesses for their opening remarks. And now we will start our first round of questioning with MPD Reader for 6 minutes. Please go ahead. You will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. My question is going to be for you, Hugo. So today, we've heard over and over that we don't even have a definition of what Canadian sovereignty means for AI and innovation in this current government. So we have no definition on what to protect and no definition on what we want to retain, both with our innovation and our talent. But the money seems to be flowing. There's already hundreds of millions of dollars being spent. It seems to me like this government is running with their eyes closed. I'm going to ask you, do you believe that there are guardrails or plans in place to ensure that the almost $1.3 billion for innovation funding goes to tech companies in Kitchener, for example, to retain our innovation and talent, instead of it leaving to foreign entities that's taking our innovation and talent?
I'm not aware of exactly the plan on how that money will be spent, but I think there are a lot of general ideas that would probably be recognized. One of them being having compute infrastructure that we more fully control for certain areas. And I think I mentioned the importance of talent. I think this is where everything starts. And I think that is one way in which we do play a big role in terms of having a strategy for our sovereignty, that just making sure that we are training here the future workers of our digital economy that will be highly based on AI. So those two seem like important components, but I'm sure, this ecosystem is rich. There's a number of perspectives that might inform what exactly we mean by this. But those would be two key ones that certainly I would advocate for.
In your experience, how much infrastructure do we currently control?
A lot of I can largely speak in terms of the research that is being done at Mila and within our walls by our professors and our students. And we do have a good amount of infrastructure that is locally based. Some of it is based at Université Laval in Quebec City. Some of it we have in Montreal. Sometimes also our researchers and students will use some of the cloud providers for some of their compute. Depends a lot on their needs and what they're trying to achieve. And I would say, just generally speaking, that does make sense to me, that depending on the specific needs and what you're trying to achieve and its context, then sometimes you want something that's local, sometimes something that's in the cloud will be sufficient. So it depends a lot.
I've noticed too, we have amazing talent coming out of Kitchener Centre, but the thing is we educate very well where I'm from, but everybody seems to be leaving and going to Silicon Valley. What can the government put in place to ensure that we retain our talent, especially in tech centers like Kitchener Centre?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's a great question, and I think about it a lot. I think a lot about, especially from the the point of view of the students that we're training, and making sure they have opportunities at the level of their talent. So if they're looking for an academic career as a professor, I think this is where the CFA chair program is one key element. This is why I emphasized this in my remarks. So just making sure that as academics, as scientists, we really make sure to provide them the opportunity at the level of their expertise. I think for those who might be more interested in applying AI and building tools that are used by people, making sure that we're equipping them with the tools to start their own company, for instance. I think this is something at Mila we're thinking a lot about these days. We have this idea of a venture scientist program that we're currently building, which as the scientific director, my hope is that this program will make sure that our students, some of them might decide to go in at universities and such, but some of them might be interested in potentially building something from scratch and building a company. I just want this program to ensure that those who decide not to do that, not to build a startup, it's not because they didn't feel they weren't equipped to understand how to do this kind of work and approach this kind of challenge. So I would double down on that as well.
I agree with supporting startups. Though, we do a very good job at incubating in Kitchener Centre, but commercialization doesn't happen here in Canada. We don't have an environment where venture capitalists want to invest in Canada. We have too high of tax, regulatory burdens are too high. So although I agree with having the incubation for these startups, what can this government do better to make sure that they also can commercialize and stay here in Canada and again not leave?
Mm-hmm. I'll speak from perhaps some of the conversations I've had, also including with local investors. I think one thing I've heard a number of times was access to pre-seed and seed funding as being something that was potentially lacking. I've heard this is not something I've experienced myself, but I've heard in our community. I know there's some of that in the budget, which I think is a good step.
Yeah, I think there's money for pre-seed and seed, but it's where you get into B and C funding that the venture capitalists, it's too risk averse here in Canada. So I'm just going to ask again, what do you think the government could do to make it a better environment for when they go to commercialization, which is B and C funding, to make it a better environment for capitalists to want to actually invest here in Canada?
I could maybe speculate, but because I'm not a venture VC, I can't speak directly to that experience. I'm familiar with Radical Ventures in Toronto, for instance, which has a lot of success. I feel like I don't have a fully informed perspective on that.
Time is up for Ms. MP DeRidder. Now we will proceed to MP McKelvey for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question is for Professor Kolechik. You mentioned, I think it was you that mentioned that you had come from the U.S., correct? Okay, so in our budget, we have funding for recruitment of top international researchers. So I'm just wondering, what should we be looking for? What might be the challenges we face as we try to do this in the space of AI? And are there gaps that we want to be attracting for AI, for example?
It is 6 minutes. Sorry, I said 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, I come from the U.S., ma femme est québécoise, so it's been a pleasure that we moved 3 years ago to Montreal, but I've spent 30 years of my career prior in the U.S., much of it in the Boston area. The U.S. is a highly competitive ecosystem in and of itself. I think we have a few advantages from the Canadian perspective. One, I find that the interaction, the collaboration that is here is actually much greater than it is in the U.S. I think it's much more of dog eat dog in the U.S., and it's been a delight to come here and find that for the most part, you roll up your sleeves, you have people next to you with their sleeves rolled up as well. I think particularly in the last 6 months, in the academic environment, things have become rather fraught, rather tense. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of concern, particularly when you're talking about concepts like EDI. And a lot of that is where the AI and society interface are now working, is at that forefront of responsible AI. So I think there is really a moment of opportunity for recruitment to flow much more in Canada's advantage than it may have even up to, say, 6 months ago. And I know there are certainly efforts being made at university levels. I think the more that the governments at both provincial and federal levels can help accentuate that and help support that, the better that we will do on attracting the AI talent.
Thank you. My next question, Dr. La Rochelle, and it's fitting that you're at a CFAR meeting right now. And CFAR does connect the best Canadian minds with the best minds internationally. So what do you see as our potential for attraction of great minds in AI? Are there particular gaps that we should be looking to fill?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's a great idea to try to leverage that network. Indeed, once this we're through funding like that and these specialized chairs, I think we can easily leverage both the fact that we have personal connections with some academics that are stellar and recognized around the world, and make them comfortable and understand that we have a really collaborative ecosystem, like Eric mentioned. I think this is something that really stands out, generally speaking, when we speak of our ecosystem of research. And I guess I would add CFAR has been involved also, I mean, obviously through the CFAR chair, which has meant having some of our professors training PhD students, who some of them might have left. I think going through our network of alumni is also a potential win, which we might be able to attract. And maybe I'll mention, maybe this relates less to CFAR, but I was working at Google before. I decided that I wanted to take that experience and work for a Canadian organization, and one, Mila, which I felt was really the foundation of everything we're attempting to do and we're doing in AI, certainly in Quebec and as a contribution to Canada. I think there might be some other companies that might be American that have researchers that might be interested in contributing back in this way, potentially joining academia as well. So I think there's a few sources that we could try to leverage.
So thank you. So yes, when you go back to that room, maybe you can make sure to make that top of mind for all of the great minds that you are meeting with. I did work at CFAR in 2017. I helped with some of the scientific editing of the Pan-Canadian proposal. My next question to you really is, what's next? So we've had a successful 8 years. The government is engaging right now on what the next step should be. So from your mind as a top AI researcher and part of the CFAR program, what are some of the things that we should now be looking to bring to the forefront as we move into the next stage of this work?
Thank you for the question. I would say already just confirming that, this program is continuing and the CFAR chair program is continuing. As I mentioned in my opening words, is quite top of mind. So if we can take actions quickly, then we're more solid ground in terms of being able to approach other academics, knowing how many other CFAR AI chairs we might have to attract more people in addition to these specialized chairs would be very valuable. So that's maybe what's top of mind for me today.
So the programs I did manage, it was not on the AI projects. I was on the quantum. And actually, we organized a seminar probably very similar to yours in Banff. How are you engaging with the quantum group? And can we take some of the learnings that we had with the AI, with the Pan-Canadian strategy, and should we be trying to move with more of a deliberate Pan-Canadian quantum strategy that could really foster collaboration also between your groups?
That's a great question. Quantum is less in my area, so I don't speak in a way that's as informed as speaking in AI. I will say we have at Mila a number of researchers that have collaborations with people with expertise in quantum. And so I think there is potentially an intersection here that's quite unique given our ecosystem. This is something that I think the AI institutes can help out with a lot. So the way we structure our members, our professors.
Sorry for interrupting. Time is
sure.
up for MP McKelvey. Maybe you can come back in the second round. And we will now proceed to MP Blanchet-Juncker for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je salue les témoins qui sont avec nous aujourd'hui.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad to have you here. My first question for Mr. Lampotente. The state of science and innovation in Canada is led by Innovation and Science Canada, and it says that Canada funds in part university research, but cannot transform that research into commercialization and economic spin-offs. And this leads to an imbalance. So the research that is developed is not translated into action. And that Canada identifies good ideas, but they are hardly translated into real action and intellectual property.
Un petit peu
That is somewhat the topic of my remarks. If you look at the situation in Europe, where you have organizations like EARTO, their innovation ecosystem are usually composed of 3 pillars, not just industry, academic world, but also the RTOs, which are organizations that establish the bridge between science and the needs of industry. These are organizations that receive public funding because there's a lot of scientific promising innovation is still very risky. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's the role that the RTOs play. Very often, it's not very well understood, but to develop a viable product, we tend to say that the main issue is commercialization, but sometimes we don't know how to sell. The issue is the balance between the needs, the product and the market needs. So sometimes we feel that the market needs all we invent, whereas sometimes the market needs are very different from what we can imagine. Let me come back to international comparisons. Other states like Korea, the US, and all that support intermediary research centers. And even the report I referred to, it's referred to as indispensable for productivity. So in your opinion, why has Canada never come up with such a network? In Quebec, for 40 years, we have the Montreal Computer Center, the CCTT, other technology transfer centers. So how have we never been able to do that in Canada? If we take the CRIM, there are other actors in Quebec, the National Optic Institute that works on quantum computing and on rare critical minerals as well, FP Innovation. These are players that have existed for 30 or 40 years, and they have been working hard. But whether they are recognized as a class of actors or not, that is something else. My job, that's what we've been doing for years. We're trying to make that role to be understood. But these are actors that have existed for a long time. But if programs and modalities are adjusted, they could have a greater impact. Mr. Labonte, still on the same report, it said that federal policies do not really sustainably support what we need. You mentioned some actors in Quebec. There's also SRSR. They play an essential role between research and industry. They came here a few weeks ago, and they spoke with a lot of pride. They have a 90% transfer rate, and that's great. How can they operate? I wonder how they can operate and obtain such results. Such initiatives like SRSR, are they an essential part of what is missing in Canada? Well, before I went to CRIM, I also spent 5 years at the Innovation Center in McGill, so I understand very well the role of the transfer of technology. It is essential, but the route to commercialization is very risky because at this phase, there are all the risks involved: production, reliability, robustness, and all that. transfer or not to transfer, that is simply one indicator. But we need inventions that go through the entire cycle from the universities right to a reliable product that produces income. There are many other indicators we need to look into. Now, you talked about profitability. The report commissioned said Canada has difficulty transforming its research into socioeconomic spin-offs. You've generated things that are 9 or 12 times more than the initial investment, and you've done a lot. So how come we have these models that is producing results in Quebec but does not receive funding from the federal government? Why? Well, I don't have the answer to that question. There's an important factor that we need to understand in the model. We are organizations with a requirement to have at least 50% funding. We are more of a market pull. A lot of our funding must come through industries, so we are close to the market needs. But we cannot anticipate as the academic world does. As a result, we contribute through our expertise with our understanding of what is going on.
With that, now we will start our second round of questioning, and we will begin that with MP Mahal for 5 minutes. MP Mahal, please go ahead. You will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would want to start with Professor Kolzak. This is the second round of questioning, and we had our first round of questioning where we had 2 witnesses that extensively talk about the need of infrastructure, ecosystem, sovereignty on AI research and its retention in Canada. It's not that we are in a political instability or that we have a government that is in power from last 10 years and now heading into their 11th year. They are spending millions and millions of dollars when it comes to bureaucracy or when it comes to even funding under the name of AI. We just heard from previous witness that they have given over $250 million and signed a MOU with the US-based firm, while the purpose of that, those funding was to enhance the SMEIs in Canada. And in your testimony, you talk about that the collaboration in Canada is higher as compared to US and other models. So I think what is lacking in your opinion that if we have higher collaboration as compared to other jurisdictions, why are we not able to commercialize on AI or on IP despite those higher level of collaborations?
That's a great question. Thank you very much for that. That covers a lot of ground and a lot of time. I've only been here 3 years. I don't go back to 10 years, so I'm going to try and comment within where I feel I have some experience. The collaborations I was referring to was particularly at the academic level. The inclination to collaborate across institutions, both within the city of Montreal, for example, and also across the country, I think is something that is built into many of the funding calls that I've seen here in a way that I felt certainly is not unheard of in the U.S., but is less common. So that was the collaboration that I was referring to. The challenges regarding the flow of funds that you were talking about earlier, I feel I'm on the edge of where I can comment with any expertise, but it does seem to me that there may be a catch-up game that needs to be played here in the sense that the U.S. has been developing that their infrastructure, their relationships and whatnot. It is, although Canada has been involved for the 10 years that you said, it may be that with the shifting landscapes, one needs to rethink sort of how those flow. And yet at the same time, these things can't be spun on a dime. the amount of infrastructure that the Googles, the AWSs, and whatever has, that's fairly substantial. I think the important thing is to be talking about it, which we're doing here, obviously, and beginning to think about how it might be actioned.
Thank you. If I can go to Professor, I'm not sure if I can pronounce that, Lachhman?
Close enough.
Close enough.
Shell. Yeah.
Professor Lachhman, you are saying that you worked with Google and other MNCs, and now you chose to come back to Canada and work for the local to promote that sovereignty that we are talking about in the past session and this hour. Breakthrough research and its commercialization and conversion into industrialization. It's obviously lacking in Canada right now, and talent is moving to other jurisdictions. So how can we better on that? How can we do better on it? How can we make sure that all the Canadian wealth that is spent on research is actually converted into commercialization in Canada and stays in Canada?
Thank you for your question. Also, maybe I'll clarify that I've been in Montreal in the past 8 years. So when I was at Google, it was to open a team and a lab here, something I thought was really important to create opportunities for Canadians here. But then, recently I moved to scientific director at Mila 3 months ago. So my answer is similar to, I think, the one I've given before, related to making sure, broadly speaking, that we offer opportunities for our researchers that are based here and at the level of their talent and their capability. And one area where I think we can seize more opportunities is in the area of startups. So this is why more funding available to help those motivated in taking some of their research and building concretely new tools and products and opportunities to put more intelligence in our society. So put this technology in the hands of in various parts or spheres of our society. I think there's something here. While we do that, we really should make sure that we continue producing local talent. So that is something that we need to maintain, and then make sure that beyond university research or academic research.
Sorry for interrupting. Time is up for MP Mahal. And with that, we will go to MP Noor Mohammed for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank the witnesses for being here. I'm going to start with Professor Kolaczyk. One of the things that I think we've been trying to emphasize over the course of the last little while, when we talk about the urgency of dealing with support for the AI sector and the quantum sector in Canada, is to make sure that there is support for an ecosystem, support for researchers, support for the ability to be able to work in partnership on this. I'm going to also go to Mr. Le Rochelle as well on this, because I think it's important to get the Mila perspective on this. Look, this budget contains hundreds of millions of dollars for AI. It contains over $1 billion in terms of ensuring that there is a capital ecosystem that'll work to support this sector. There are all kinds of incentives to be able to keep Canadian innovators in this country to do work in the sectors that you represent. Talk to me a little bit about, and I want to point out that all the Conservatives in this room voted against the budget that in fact gave support to every single one of these initiatives, every single one of these supports that the industry needs in order to be able to grow and thrive and stay in Canada. What would be the consequences of these resources that are being put in to support the AI sector not being available by Canadian researchers and not being available by Canadian companies? Perhaps you can start, Professor Kolaczyk, and then we'll go to you, Mr. La Rochelle.
Sure. Thank you for the question. The consequences, we're witnessing a moment now where what we mean by AI research has become extremely broad and necessarily broad, right? We spent well over a good decade, even just on the most recent iterations of what we have now in deep learning and the ChatGPTs and all of that. But really, it's where AI and society meet. that so much of the research has to happen. This is why at our institute, for example, we have what we call the Collaborative for AI in Society, and we specifically are focusing on nurturing that interface. So this means that it is not only the technical people, but the lawyers, the people studying farming, the people studying governance, policy, and whatnot. So I think it's important when we think about the flows of funds like you're talking about, that we realize that it is a highly networked ecosystem, multiple layers, and it's important that that those different layers get nourished in ways that they can interact so that we get a whole greater than the sum of the parts reaction. Because I think ultimately what we're looking for is very much getting whole greater than sum of parts.
So indeed, then quite irresponsible for the Conservatives to vote against those very provisions. So perhaps I can now turn to you, Mr. La Rochelle.
Yes, thank you for the question. Maybe the way I would approach my answer is specifically thinking about the C4AI Chairs program and what I think could happen if it wasn't renewed and we didn't continue investing in our talent. It is quite clear to me that we are at risk then of seeing some of our best talent moving away even more than what might be our concern today. And that means researchers that will be, well, certainly the graduate PhD students who perhaps wouldn't end in academia, would end in industry. This is the future of our workforce. And not just in technology, but I think in many other spheres of our society, because I think, as Eric mentioned, we'll see AI in many, many different parts of our economy or the way we function, the solutions we provide just generally in our society.
Now, if I could just continue with you, our colleagues opposite noted that perhaps it was either irresponsible, not appropriate for government to allocate these funds without having an AI strategy in place first. Can you talk about the urgency of why putting those resources into supporting the ecosystem was so important, and why having a 30-day sprint to get a strategy done with thought leaders in this space, knowing the commitments government was prepared to make, was actually important? And if you could share your thoughts on that.
The main reason, thank you for your question. The main reason to move quickly is that as we're getting to the end of the current phase of the C4AI chairs, we need to have a sense of what is coming after so we can work on recruiting some of the next professors. And as I mentioned, that process takes some time. And so having some certainty, and also for the current chair awardees who are wondering whether they'll still have a chair, research chair in 4 or 5 years. And so that's why it is quite important. I think these chairs, generally speaking, are pretty robust program. It's made its proof for a long period of time. So I don't think there's a lot of risk in approving it right now. And it's there to fund individuals that we can already trust because, the current chairs have a track record of innovation. So that's why I think we can move quickly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Time is up, and we will now end this panel with 2.5 minutes with the MP Blanchet-Dionca. So please go ahead. You will have 2.5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Présidente.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to table the following motion, which I had circulated to all colleagues and to you. Given the mandate of the Standing Committee on Science and Research, that the committee invite the Minister of Industry, Melanie Joly, and the Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation, Ivan Solomon, to appear for at least 2 hours each to discuss their mandate and other related matters, that these meetings take place no later than 11 December 2025, and that the committee report its findings and recommendations to the House following the meeting. So I just want to explain the reasons for tabling this motion.
Blanchet-Dionca, sorry for interrupting.
Oui.
You have moved the motion. I just want to make it clear that in order to have a debate on that, we need 48 hours of notice, because this motion is not related directly to the study of the topic today and the notice of the motion which was issued today, which is in regards to MP Baldinelli's motion of AI, which was moved unanimously by the committee. Because I am saying this, because this involves discussing the mandate and the other related materials, matters of both the ministers, Minister for Industry and the Minister for Artificial Intelligence, and it is asking for a separate report to be tabled in the House of Commons. So this is my ruling that we need a 48 hours notice, as this motion is not directly related to the study of the motion right now. Yes, MP.
Oui. Alors, Madame la Présidente, moi je...
Madam Chair, I would like solutions with my colleagues. We may amend the motion, or you understand that I will be challenging your decision and ask for a vote.
And you can challenge, and we will have a vote. So,
Merci.
So we will vote on whether the ruling of the chair be sustained. So the clerk will conduct the vote, and we are all voting on whether the ruling of the chair should be sustained. Thank you.
Mr. Noor Mohamed.
Oui.
Ms. Jasek.
Yes.
Ms. McKelvey.
Yes.
Monsieur Rana. Mr. Rana.
Yes.
Mr. Baldinelli.
No.
Ms. De Ridder.
No.
Mr. Vincent.
No.
Mr. Mahal.
No.
Monsieur Blanchet-Jonca.
Non.
4 yeas, not 5 nays.
Okay, so we are on the debate of the motion. Yes, MP Blanchet-Jonca.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Écoutez,
Thank you, Chair. I would like to give you the reasons for this motion. In November, the Canadian Council tabled its report on the state of AI, which confirms that the country is going through an innovation, productivity and adoption crisis. So I'm asking that in my opinion, it is important to listen to the minister responsible for AI as well as the Minister of Industry, Melanie Joly, before the 11th of December, because that's when parliamentary work will end and when we'll also have the last session, so that the chamber could receive a comprehensive report. So I'm asking that this motion be adopted by my colleagues.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another point of view, 3 things. First of all, in the motion, the name of the minister is not correct. It's Mr. Solomon, S-O-L-O-M-O-N. Could that be corrected? Secondly, for us to continue with this motion, 2 things. The Minister Solomon will be here on the 3rd of December. We have a date already. We could work with Madame Joly for her to appear, but the G7 meeting will be holding the same week. I think that's starting on the 8th of December. So we need to choose a date together that will work for the committee and for the minister as well.
The response back, unclear as to why there should be a report back to the House on the basis of the questioning of ministers on mandate, which is sort of outside of practice. So trying to understand the logic there would be super helpful. But as I said, we are willing to work to get a date for Minister Joly. But if there's, she's obviously with the G7, it's going to be important for her to be there. And we've already got a date with Mr. Solomon, so it's kind of moot.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, that was towards the end when I wanted to inform everybody that Minister for Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation is available to appear on Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025, for 1 hour, along with the Associate Deputy Minister, Mark Shan, who would then stay for the 2nd hour. So this is the response we have received. So everyone okay to schedule the meeting? Yes, MP Blanchet.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Écoutez,
Thank you, Chair. Well, I would like to respond to some concerns. The first thing is that I personally spoke with Minister Joly, and I told her that I need answers to questions relating to the budget strategic orientations. My team was sent to see the minister. You know that the name science is no longer included in her title, and we wonder why, because we never received an explanation or even the opportunity to question her about that. And with good faith, we contacted her again. We understand that she's very busy. Last week, we contacted her team to find out if it was possible to meet. Madam Chair, we did not even have confirmation that she read our email. With technology, we can know when people read our emails or when they don't read our emails. Now, we have two facts as evidence that even when colleagues try to seek information from the cabinet, from the minister's cabinet, or from the minister, it's impossible to do so. So I am concerned as a parliamentarian and as a member or vice chair of this committee. I think it's relevant to be able to shed light on strategic orientations, investments in the last budget, non-investments as well, but issues that have to do with AI. I think that's a very legitimate issue, and we are holding a study on that today. So, Madam Chair, you said Minister Solomon will be appearing, but only for 1 hour. Our motion talked about 2 hours. So that's the context, and that is why I would like to receive support from my colleagues for this motion so that we can obtain answers to our questions and concerns, and also people listening to us with their computers and mobile phones could also have answers.
MP Blanchard-Jonca, before we get into further debate, I really want to thank the witnesses who are here for this panel, and maybe we will continue this meeting and deal with this motion. So I really want to thank all the witnesses, and you can leave if you desire to. Thanks for your appearance before the committee. Yes, in regards to your question about minister's appearance for 1 hour, like we sent in the request for 2 hours, but the response is what I have received and what I told everybody. And we can always request, and it is up to the ministers to let us know. So, yes, we have MP Jessic on the list, and then we will come to MP Baltin.
Madam Chair, the part of Monsieur Blanchard-Jonca's motion that I find extremely puzzling is the last phrase, and that the committee report its findings and recommendations to the House following the meeting. I don't understand how that's relevant. Surely reports from this committee to the House relate to studies that we are doing. So I would move, at the very least, to suggest that we strike that piece of the recommendation.
Thank you. MP Thank you. MP Jessic, can you please reread the amendment you have proposed? Because now we have amendment on the floor. The clerk was not able to get the last part
I would simply strike the last phrase and end the motion as a preliminary amendment no later than December 11th, 2025, period.
So now we have an amendment on the floor as proposed by MP Jessic, and we will now deal with the amendment first. She's asking, the amendment is to end the motion at December 11, 2025, and to delete and that the committee report its finding and recommendations to the House following the meeting. So she's asking to delete that. So we have an amendment on the floor. MP Noor Mohammed. Yes, so now we are dealing with the amendment. So MP Noor Mohammed.
So I would obviously support my colleague's amendment. I would only note that I would have an amendment forthcoming, which would also deal with the December 11th date, because the challenge that we've got is that Minister Joly is at the G7 until the 10th. So I'm just pointing out that there are a couple of ways we could deal with it. One is one larger amendment, or we could deal anyways. So I was just going to point that out.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Any discussion on the amendment proposed by MP Jessic? Yes, MP Blanchard-Jonca.
Oui, Madame la Présidente, c'est possible de suspendre le comité.
Is it possible to suspend the meeting for a few minutes to check the information?
Okay. Okay, I will suspend the meeting for a few minutes. The meeting is suspended. to order. If I can request all the members to take their seats. We suspended the meeting. Before that, we were on the amendment proposed by MP Jessic. So any debate on the amendment proposed by MP Jessic? MP Baldinelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to colleagues. Now, quickly, removing that entire line that's been proposed by my colleague, I mean, it's not so much about having recommendations in there, but I would still suggest that following our meeting with the ministers, that the committee report its findings back to the House. I think that should be still included with it. Not so much recommendations, but based on the testimony and what we're hearing, that we present a report and then that we present that in the House.
MP Blanchet-Jonca and then MP McKelvey.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Écoutez, c'est ça, simplement.
Thank you, Chair. The objective was simply because Minister Solomon should come here as part of the study. Minister Joly, if she comes, if there are any questions that we ask them, then all that should be reported back to the House. As we do most of the time, information is transmitted to the House for the government to respond. That's the main reason.
McKelvey?
I'm very confused. So MP Baldinelli just, Madam Chair, and maybe I can ask, are we allowed to ask questions of people?
We are debating on the amendment, so...
That was part of my...
Yeah, so he gave his comments on the amendment, so you please...
I think the AI study, is this within the AI study or is this separate? So it's...
If you read the
motion,
just all the comments should be addressed through the chairs, not directly.
And then, but the comment that you just made sounded like it was like with the recommendations and the testimony, what you're hearing, so that it was more part of the AI study. Because Minister Solomon will be... Minister Solomon is reporting back through the AI study and will be here. So I would think all of that would all be combined into what comes out of this study, right?
Okay, so just to clarify before we get into further debate, right now we are debating on the motion which has been proposed by MP Blanchet-Jonca, which asks for separate report, committee report and its finding and recommendations to the House following this particular meeting. This is what the motion is asking. MP Jessic proposed amendment to delete this line. But as this motion this is asking for a separate report that will be separate from the AI report. So, MP
mandates as well.
MP Noor Mohammed. So
I guess just I'm confused on a couple of things here. One is that I understand that Mr. Blanchet-Jonca wanted to discuss more than just mandates. So I just want if we can get clarity on that. And then the other thing is the intention to propose one report for each of the ministers or one report for both the ministers? And if I could just get an understanding of what the intention of that report actually is, because ordinarily, and I would stand to be corrected, is that whenever there's been the opportunity to question ministers on mandate, there isn't a report that goes back to the House on the Q&A on that. So I'm just trying to figure that piece of it out.
Okay, this motion asks for as it says, is to discuss their mandate and other related matters. So, MP Jessic.
So it sounds like this is a proposal for a whole new study on ministers' mandates. Is that and other related matters, whatever that is? Is it a completely separate study? Because surely it's only reports of the Committee on Studies that get reported to the House.
Thank you. MP Blanchet-Jonca.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Chair. Let me reassure my colleagues, since the word study doesn't appear in the motion, so I don't know why we're trying to say that it's a study or a new study. The word study is not mentioned in the motion. So I understand that we are trying other types of other strategies, but we need to reread the motion. but if you have any questions, I can answer them. And let me repeat. The objective is simply to invite the Minister of AI as part of the current study, and of course, Minister Joly, and after that, the information that is collected from those testimonies may be introduced in the report of the current study or in another study. Every time we carry out studies here, and when witnesses appear, reports are presented to the House. For example, the Chief Science Advisor will be appearing this week. In the motion, I'm saying that the report will be presented to the House. So why can't we act the same way as we usually do? When we work here in committee, it's important for the report of our work to be presented to the House, for our colleagues to know, and for the government to respond. So in my opinion, it's about accountability by our colleagues and for the government to be able to respond when reports are tabled to the House, as is the case often.
To MP Blanchet-Jonca, just to clarify that you said that for the government to respond, like as this motion stands, it is not asking for the government to respond. Just want to let you know. And just to clarify again, I think there is a little bit of unclarity based on this motion, and I would like you to clarify that this will be because this motion asks for a separate report. This is not saying that these ministers' testimonies be included in this study of artificial intelligence. It is not asking that. This motion is asking for a separate report, and this motion is asking like 2 hours each. That means 2 meetings. One with Minister for Industry and one for Minister for AI. So, I just want to clarify for the information of all the members what this motion means. MP Noor Mohammed and then MP McCallum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pour moi, il y en a quelques-uns des questions ici.
I have a number of questions. I understand that my colleague wants Mr. Solomon to appear during this study to discuss his mandate within the context of this study. If it's okay, we can include that to the report we present to the House.
In the context of this study, of course, that would appear in the context of the report that we would prepare. What I'm having difficulty understanding is that if we are then inviting Minister Joly to come and we want to do a separate piece on her piece, but then we also want Minister Solomon to appear on things outside of this study, also on his mandate, are we now saying that we want the appearance that we've got, plus a separate appearance for him to come, and then to talk about different things alongside Madame Joly? There's a lot of different things going on here. And so I think for us to just, understand a few things. One is I think everybody here from all parties wants Minister Solomon to appear. He's been keen to appear, and I'm sure that he will enjoy being here with us to talk about work that he is incredibly passionate about. He is going to be getting ready for the G7. He's already given us a date when he intends to appear and wishes to be here with us. So I think we've got that squared away. His testimony should, I would imagine, if it is in the context of this study, which is what Monsieur Blanchet-Jonca had initially suggested, would certainly fall within the bounds of what it is that we are trying to do in this study. If we are now talking about a motion that is entirely separate from that also then includes Minister Joly, I guess we would need to have a clear understanding as a committee of what it is that we are certainly trying to accomplish in that regard, and how it is that we see a report from ministers appearing on mandate, which I don't believe is generally done, be part of this conversation. Monsieur Blanchet-Jonca brought up the chief science advisor who is coming on Wednesday. The mandate and the work of the chief science advisor was clearly in the context that was laid out in the motion that required a response back. The way in which the question was asked and the way in which the appearance was posited to this committee contemplated exactly that, contemplating a response from this committee that would then go to the House. That's what we all understood. if we are going to start getting into the business of having ministers appear on mandate, and then we're going to start saying that we need a response to the mandate, are we not having a response in respect of the content of the mandate? Are we having a response in respect of the response that the minister has to their mandate? Or are we just giving our opinions as to whether or not we agree with the mandate itself? So, I mean, again, this is a committee that, in my view, thus far has done incredibly rigorous work. We've managed to work on some fairly complicated things in the main without being without playing a whole lot of silly bugger, and in the main, we've managed to get some good work done. But I'm trying to understand what the intention would be. If it is simply, as I think we would all understand, the idea that Minister Solomon appear in the context of this committee, in this study, to do his work, then great, let's do that. If it's a separate appearance in respect of other things outside of the scope of this study, great, let's talk about that in that context. Minister Jolie's appearance is clearly outside the context of this study, as Mr. Blanchet-Jonca has noted. Right, nothing to do with AI, or does it? I don't know. If it has nothing to do with, then clearly it's separate and unrelated to all of this. Yes. So if that is the case, then are we having Minister Solomon appear in the context of his mandate in the context of this study, or having Minister Solomon appear outside of the context of this study in the context of his mandate? Right, so I think we need to be clear about what it is that we are asking people to do. Now, going back to the point about the National Science Advisor, then I just want to make sure we're abundantly clear. Right? The idea that we would ask questions of the National Science Advisor, that we would then posit a response on the basis of that, makes perfect sense. But if not, then let's get some clarity as a group here. Because if we're going to figure out how we keep doing things together, which I think we certainly can, then let's be clear about what we're trying to get done in these motions.
Thank you, MP Noor Mohammed. I have a good list of the speakers. We will next go to MP McKelvey, then Mr. Ho, and then MP D. Ritter, and then MP Jessic. MP McKelvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I share the concerns that my colleague has raised. We have Minister Solomon coming soon within the context of the AI study. There will be a report that will synthesize what we're hearing from witnesses. We have a lot of witnesses that we want to hear between now and the end of the study. The study that I think was proposed by the Conservatives as one of their key objectives of study. And I don't think we want to be taking away time from these witnesses that we have coming in. And I think we have to be respectful of their time, give them lots of time to get here. I also think we have to be respectful of our international commitments that the ministers have